Hello, Sherman Wood, head football coach here at Salisbury University. As you guys know, I was planning to have a summer youth football camp here on campus at Salisbury University. I obviously want to reach out to the community and give all the youth organization and the coaches a real good idea of what Salisbury football is all about. But obviously, we had to cancel the camp simply because of COVID-19. So with the help of Pac-14, as well as our conference planning and our athletics department, we decided to at least give you some idea of what you may have missed during the Sherman Wood Youth Football Camp. So we want to make sure we at least provide some type of advice and information to the community, even though we can't be with each other during the camp. But at the same time, hopefully the information that you receive today will give you some idea when we move forward towards next summer. Just to let you know what was going on for the camp. Our number one goal was to teach fundamentals. Today's game is a game that we wanted to make sure that we keep safe, and we want to make sure that our kids, especially at the youth level and at all levels, understand the importance of fundamentals in the game of football. So we definitely want to make sure we teach that. Number two, we want to keep the game safe. So basically, I was going to make sure that we had our kids in a position to understand, here are ways that we can keep the game safe, and just to let the parents know out there that the Coaches Association across the country, whether it's youth league, whether it's high school, colleges, and even the NFL, we're doing all we can to keep the game safe. Because I know sometimes, most of the time, you hear news, and you hear a lot of things about head injuries and some of the injuries that pertains to football. But I can assure you that we as an association, we do all we can to make sure that we teach the proper way of keeping the game safe. And number three, we actually was going to do some things on the field. We was definitely going to do a great job teaching the kids on the field. But for the camp, we was going to have a lot of fun off the field. We had in place that our kids was going to occupy the game room here on campus. We was going to do campus tours, give everyone a better understanding of Salisbury University and obviously our football program. And if the pool was going to be open, we was going to have fun in the pool. But one of the things that everyone loves is our dining service. You guys was going to have all you can eat in our dining facility. So those were the main things that was going to be covered during our football camp. But what I want to do is I want to give you some idea of how we can keep the game safe. But the people who really make things happen are the people up front, the offensive line and the defensive line. And assisting me today are two of our assistants that will touch base on the fundamentals and the basics of offensive line play and the fundamentals and basics of defensive line play. First, we have Andrew Houck. Andrew Houck is a Wacomico High School graduate, local product here in Salisbury. And Andrew is someone who played offensive line here in our program, All-American offensive lineman. And in a few minutes, he'll get a chance to give you some idea of the success that we have here at Salisbury University. And also with us is Coach Hensley. Coach Hensley will be providing the basics of the defensive line. Coach Hensley is a two-sport star here at Salisbury University, did a great job with our D-line and some of the other things about our program. Well, he would definitely touch base with you in reference to the importance of the basics and fundamentals of defensive line play, not only here at Salisbury, but they give you some idea of the way things should be taught across the country. So first, let me just give you some idea of showing you a couple examples of how we keep the game safe. I don't know if some of you have heard of rugby tackling, but rugby tackling is one way we keep the game safe. Now, what do you think I mean by rugby tackling? Well, number one, the first thing we want to do is make sure that we stay away from the head and the neck. So let's take this for example. Here we have imaginary running back, okay? Well, you see right in here, we have the neck area, the head and neck area right in here. And we have the chest area, okay? So let's imagine that. So one of the main things that we want to do is we want to stay away from the head and neck area, okay? When we're talking about tackling, this is the way we teach it. So imagine me being an inside linebacker. This dummy right here is imaginary ball carrier. Right now, that ball carrier has already turned the corner, and this linebacker here is already in a position where he's going to come and attack and make this tackle. Now, the first rule for this linebacker is to make sure that when he sees the running back or ball carrier commits, now he wants to track the hip, okay? Put his eyes on the hip or the thighs of the ball carrier, okay? So what we'll do is, if I'm the linebacker, the ball carrier's already gone, I'm here, I can scrape, now I'm gonna attack, I'm tracking the hip, and I can see what's going on here, and I'm staying away from the head and neck area, and now I wanna be in a position where I can wrap, and I can pull them down, okay? And that's a no-gain situation. So that's number one. To progress that, we want to, what we call is same rugby tackling, same approach, but we want to call now, if you want to be in a position to take them further back, we call it wrap and roll, okay? So I'm the linebacker again, I'm in a position, again, what I'm going to aim for, I'm tracking the hip and I'm tracking the thighs. I'm gonna stay away from the head and neck area. So here we go again. Now I track. As I approach here, I wrap. My head is on the near hip side, and then I'm gonna squeeze, and I'm gonna drop that knee, and then I turn them and roll, okay? I'm not gonna do all of that at this point in time, but that is one example of keeping the game safe when it comes to tackling. And everyone can teach that. Youth coaches, high school, college, it doesn't matter. But that's what we want to do. We did get this information when Pete Carroll and Coach Dan Quinn, when Dan Quinn was the defensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks. And Pete Carroll had demonstrated this with one of his assistants, Rocky Sato, back in 2014. So we coaches have been doing this for quite some time. But it's up to everyone to master the proper technique of tackling. So there you have it, folks. That's a prime example of rugby tackling.
Hi, I'm Coach Houck with the Salisbury University football team. I'm an assistant offensive line coach. Today I'm going to show you the most fundamental techniques an offensive lineman can have. First, I'm going to start with the stance. For the stance, you're going to have it staggered. Your foot is going to be splitting your other foot, depending on which side of the offensive line you're on. If you're on the left side, your left foot is going to be farther back. If you're on the right side, your right foot's going to be farther back. So I'm going to pretend I'm on the left side of the offensive line. So you want to have a shoulder width base. So you're going to put your shoulders together like this, your arms together, and go down. You put your arms down. Your feet should be right underneath your hands. Okay? Once that's all said and done, you want to get down your stance, have a flat back. You're going to have no pressure on your hand. All right? You're going to have a little pressure. You're going to look up and try to see if you see the defensive line. So once you have that done, reset it and do it again. Repetitions is the best thing you can have for this. If you don't feel comfortable, try to adjust your stance a little wider or a little narrower, depending on what's most comfortable for you. Next, I'm going to be showing you the most basic steps an offensive lineman can take. These steps are your first steps, and they're going to put you in the best position against the defender as possible. So the first step we're going to go over is the base right. So once you get in your proper stance, you're going to take a 6 to 8 inch step forward, straight forward, not at an angle, straight forward. The next step is base left. You're going to take a 6 to 8 step with your left foot. And you're going to take these steps depending on where the ball is going to go. If the ball is going to go to the right, you're going to take your base right. If the ball is going to your left, take a base left. Now there's two other steps that an offensive lineman needs to go through. It's scoop steps. These scoop steps are going to be more of an angle. You're going to get in your stance. You're going to scoop right, It's kind of like a 45-degree angle. Well, and you're going to have scoop left. 6 to 8 inches as well. These steps are going to put you in the best position possible against the defender. Next, I'm going to be showing you some basic run blocking techniques. These techniques are going to help you move the defender backwards. We'll start off in our stance. Make sure it's balanced. You can see the defender. Next, we're going to take a base left step. Base left. Look how we have good angles. We're still staying low out of our stance. We're going to have our hands tight to our body. On our second step, we're going to strike. All right, make sure you have your hands, your thumbs to the sky, and your hands are on the bottom of his numbers. Next, we're going to chop our feet in slow steps, fast. Make sure it's fast. The faster we can get our feet on the ground, the more we can push the defender backwards. This next technique is the pass blocking technique. I'm going to show you 2 basic things that an offensive lineman can do when defending the pass. So, you start out in your stance, and you've got a defender on the outside of your hip. So, we're going to be doing a kick step. So, what a kick step is, we're going to be lifting our foot up and dragging the other behind, so we can create an angle without turning our shoulders to the defender. So, because he is going to take the straightest way possible to get to the quarterback in a pass. So we're going to cut him off by taking what's called a kick step. So we're going to get in our stance, nice and balanced, make sure you see the defense, and we're going to come out and take a kick step. What we're doing is essentially reaching the foot back and dragging this one forward, or backwards with us, and keeping our shoulders squared to the line of scrimmage. Because the defender is going to take the straightest way, the easiest way possible to get to that quarterback. So we'll do that again. Get in our stance. Make sure you see your defense. Kick step. All right. This next step is going to be for a defender that's inside you. He's also going to take the straightest way to the quarterback, so we have to cut him off some type of way. So we're going to take what's called a power step. All right. So we're getting our stance. The defender's right here on my inside shoulder. I'm going to take a power step out of my stance. We're going to cut him off and keep him a half man out. So we're going to make sure he won't get to the quarterback. Shout it again. Getting our stance. Power step. Because he's inside of us. If he was outside of us, we take a kick step.
All right, guys, so as Coach Houck mentioned, some of these drills you can do in your home. A lot of these drills you can do during commercial breaks while you're watching TV, get up off the couch and work on your fundamentals of football play. So next, we just finished up with the offensive line, so now we're going to go into our defensive line fundamentals. First thing we're going to talk about is our defensive line stance. The stance from a defensive lineman to an offensive lineman changed a little bit, primarily in the weight of where your weight is put into your stance. So the same thing we're going to start out with, we want a good base, all right? As a defensive lineman, we want our hand that's closest to the ball down on the ground. So whatever hand will be down on the ground, that foot will be offset to the back. So we'll start with a wide base, slightly wider than shoulder width, okay? We're gonna imagine that the ball is to my right. So we're gonna put our right foot back, just about heel to or toe to instep relationship. Again, feet are wider than shoulder, a little bit wider than shoulder width. We're gonna sit down in our stance. Okay, good base. We want good power angles in our stance at all times. And we're just going to take our hand and we're going to fall forward. All right? We're going to fall forward. All right? I want good air underneath my heels. You'll notice in my heels are not in the ground. My heels are up. All right? I have good air, good power angles. Okay, back into my stance right here. And then we're going to have our head up looking at the offensive line so we can recognize formations and offensive line steps. With our offhand, one thing we want to make sure that we do is we do not want our offhand sitting on our thigh, okay? When we're in our stance, we want our offhand right here grazing the ground, just like a tiger ready to strike. So when we fire out of our stance, when we come up, both our hands rise up at the same time and make contact with the offensive lineman. So with defensive line play, a lot of times when we talk to our defensive linemen, the main thing we're talking about is our footwork. All right, we want to make sure that our steps out of our stance are quick, they're fast, and they're in the ground as quick as we can. A lot of times when you see an offensive lineman get into a defensive lineman and push him back, 95% of the time it's because the steps were bad. So if we can work on our footwork as much as we do here at Salisbury University, then we'll be a great defensive lineman. So one thing we do a lot of here at Salisbury is hurdle work. Now these hurdles, you don't have to go buy these hurdles. You can make your own set of hurdles just by using some PVC pipe you can find at Home Depot or Lowe's. Get some connectors and make your own version of your hurdles. So the main thing we're going to do first is we want to get our feet in the ground as quick as possible. So we'll do a little bit out of our stance on this set, but one thing I want to show you guys first is just something you can do in your backyard, basic sprinter steps to get your feet in the ground. All right, so we'll approach these hurdles. We're going to assume that this yellow line is our line of scrimmage. We're going to be a good sprinter stance, good power, and then we're going to drive our back foot forward in between these two hurdles, and then try to get our second foot down as quick as we can on the outside of the second hurdle. So it's going to look like something a little bit like this. So one thing I want to emphasize to you guys, that as a defensive lineman, you're not just going to be in one stance. All right, more than half the time, you're going to be switching on either side of the ball, so you need to be able to get into a right-handed stance and a left-handed stance. Now, predominantly, a lot of you guys are going to feel comfortable in one more than the other. So a good thing for you to do to repetize is get your non-dominant stance, your non-dominant hand, get in that stance more often. It'll feel uncomfortable at first, but the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll get with it. Now, we worked on our sprinter stance out of here, working on our footwork, getting our first 2 feet in the ground. Now we're going to transition over and get into a 3-point stance. So we're going to approach these hurdles. Now I have them offset a little bit here, and the reason for that is because of the stance. So I'm going to be in a right-handed stance. Okay, I'm going to get my feet a little bit offset, move the hurdles a little bit closer. Okay, get a good stance. Okay, my right foot's back, left foot's up. I'm going to get in my stance. I'm going to lean forward. So now, as you can see in my stance, these hurdles are set right where my feet are going to go. Okay. So we're going to be in our stance, okay? My hand's offset. I'm watching the ball snaps, boom. So the goal of the hurdles, what we're using the hurdles for, of course, we're not going to step that high in an actual game. The hurdles are there to give us some kind of resistance so that we train our brain to get our feet in the ground as quick as we can during a live game setting. So we get in our feet in the ground, strike the offensive lineman, and keep our feet moving constantly. So the third part of our first drill is our redirects. Now what we call this entire drill segment is called SSR, stance, starts, and redirects. So we went through our stance, we went through our starts, now we're going to go through our redirects. So typically how I'll work this drill with my defensive line is I'll stand 5 yards away from the hurdles, I'll give a ball clap, or we'll use a snap stick to simulate the offensive moving. Once the ball is moved and the defensive line comes out of their stance and they work through their start, I'll give them a directional change, because with defensive line play, a lot of times we got to work on a directional change depending on where the ball is going. If it's a screen, if it's a halfback pass, whatever it may be, we need to be able to change directions at an instant. So we'll come out of our stance. All right, I'll give a directional change as a coach. I'll point that way towards that cone. When I point as that direction, the defensive lineman is going to plant the opposite foot and turn flat down the line of scrimmage, or excuse me, not the line of scrimmage, flat down the line, and run through that cone. We don't want to round it off, because if we round it off, the quarterback or the running back might step up and we won't have the proper angle to make the tackle. So we'll go through one full segment of this. We won't have a coach giving a line, but we all know that I'm going to go to my left and your guy's right, running through that cone out of this stance. All right? So again, good stance. Wide, a little bit wider than shoulder width. Get down in my stance. Okay? Butts up. Good air underneath my heels. Okay? Hands down here. I'm going to go about 50% so you guys can see it. Fire out. Boom, boom. Come through. Plant. And get flat down the line. All right, so our next drill, we want to focus on our hand placement and the firing of our hands out of our stance. That's the next most important thing after we work on our stance, firing off the ball. We're going to make contact with the offensive lineman. So we want to make sure we have good explosion in our hands. Through our feet, through our stance, we want to have good power. Our hands want to be violent when we strike, and we want to have good explosion in our hips. So the first drill we're going to work on is our 6-point strike. Now you can do this, get any kind of dummy, maybe a pillow, duct tape it to a pole, something of that nature, just to simulate an offensive lineman and where he might be when you fire out of your stance. All right, so our first drill, 6-point strike, 6 points, right? Our hands are 2, our knees are 2, and our feet are 2, add up to 6, right? So we're gonna be in a 6-point stance. Our toes are gonna be curled into the turf, right? We don't wanna be like this, we don't wanna be this, we wanna curl our toes so like we'd be firing out of our stance to simulate the same thing, all right? So good toe curl, okay? Our knees are here, our hands are down. Now when we fire out of our stance, okay? Important, just as the offensive line, we wanna have our thumbs up to the sky, right? We don't wanna be like this. We don't have any good power here, no explosion. We don't wanna be like this, we wanna be right here, okay? We have good control of where our hands and our strength when our hands are like this, right? So we're gonna be in our stance, and as we fire out, we're not just gonna move our hands, we're gonna explode with our hips forward. All right, so full force is gonna look something like this. All right, let me turn my hat back around. All right, full force is gonna look something just like this, all right? Good stance, right here, or fire out, boom. All right, now notice my hips. All right, I exploded forward with my hips. Good power through there. All right, so we're right here, okay, good 6-point stance. All right, our eyes are up, we're looking at the target, okay? We're gonna fire out, boom, right there, okay? Notice my hips. Good explosion through my hips. Power through my feet, explosion through my hips, violence through the hands. All right, now we'll do that in a fast repetition with a snap stick on practice. So a lot of times we'll get a snap stick, fire out, boom, reset, boom, reset, boom, reset, right, just like that. So that's a good way to get a lot of repetitions in, working on an explosion with our hands, connecting through our stance in practice. So as we transition from the 6-point strike, now we can get into our full defensive line stance. Now it's important that we remember within our stance, depending on the scheme of defense your team plays, we want to make sure we have the proper leverage, right? So in our defense, we're going to play a 4 technique that's head up on the offensive tackle, all right? So we're going to get in our stance. We're going to be head up on the offensive lineman. Good stance. Now we're going to do the same explosion drill out of our stance, but without any steps, okay? Now instead of in a 6-point, we're in a 3-point, all right? So we're gonna be right in our stance, a good stance, air underneath the heels, my butt is up, all right? My hand's here. Now this is important when I mention in the stance. We want our hand grazing the ground. When we fire out of our stance, if our hand's back right here, they're not gonna meet at the same time at the dummy. We want our hand here, so when we fire out, we meet on the offensive line at the same time. Now good hand placement, our inside hand typically is gonna go right into the middle of the chest, right into the V of the shoulder pads. Our outside hand ranges depending on who might coach you, but we typically teach here anywhere from in the shoulder to the bicep area when we want our outside hand, just so we maintain good leverage throughout the play. So we're gonna be in our stance, okay? Good stance, fire out. Now again, we're not moving our feet, we're just gonna explode through our hips. Good power angles, violent hands, and explosion. So it looks something like this. Reset. Boom, right there. Reset. Boom, right there. So we're not moving our feet, but we're giving good explosion all the way from our feet through our hands. So as we transition from our explosion drill out of our stance, we went through our SSR, something we do with our defensive linemen every single day here in practice at Salisbury University. Now, we're gonna give you a little bit of pass technique and our pass rush. Now, as defensive linemen, you're gonna hear a lot of coaches talk about your hips. Your hip movement, your hip flexibility, your bend is one of the most important things in a defensive line pass rush. That's what you're gonna hear a lot. So one thing that I've kind of ran with here in the last year or so, talking with some other coaches, is a lot of times in pass rush, you're gonna see a lot of defensive linemen get their foot off the ground, okay? When they go to flip their hips, they're gonna bring that outside foot off the ground. Now why is that a bad thing? That's a bad thing because if I'm in the weight room and I'm squatting, I squat with 2 legs, right? I got a lot more power on 2 legs than I do on 1 leg. And if an offensive lineman gets a good strike on me while I'm flipping my hips and I have 1 leg in the air, it's not gonna be a good day for me, right? So one thing we've transitioned from is trying to keep those feet on the ground as much as possible through our pass rush. So one drill we started here at Salisbury University, what we're gonna do, we're gonna try to keep our feet on the ground and just work on shuffling our feet all across this line. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna put one foot on the line, our other foot is gonna be about maybe 1.5 to 2 feet outside of that. Our body, our head through this drill, we wanna keep our head on this white line. Keep our body, keep our center of gravity here. Our feet will move, but our upper body won't. So the drill's gonna look like this. Keep our head up too, and we're just shuffling our feet, right? I'm just replacing the opposite foot with the foot on the line. Okay? As you notice that my head does not move. My body maintains on this white line. The only part moving is below my hips with my feet. So as we progress from our hip drill on the line, working on our footwork movement, we're gonna do something we call around the world hips. All right, so we're gonna use any bag that's tall like this, round in nature, that you can use, maybe a pole you can use in your backyard. All right, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna basically do 4 90-degree turns around the bag, right? Using the same drill we just did with replacing our feet. So when we go to move, when I go to flip my hips, my back foot is gonna replace basically where my front foot is, all right? So when I move, you'll see my back foot is gonna end up right where my front foot was, but I'm gonna turn 90 degrees and face this bag. So what we do, typically we'll do it on a whistle call. We'll have 4 of these set up, have 4 guys going at one time. We're not gonna do anything with our hands, we're just gonna keep them front. All right, we're gonna play with them right here, almost like we're ready to strike, but we're not gonna use our hands, we just wanna focus on the hips, right? So we're gonna be close to the bag, right here, whistle calls, boom, flip our hips, right? Notice how when I move, I'm completely facing 90 degrees the opposite way, right? Whistle call, boom, right there, same. Now I'm facing the stadium. Whistle call, boom, right there, facing the stadium. Whistle call, boom, right there, facing the stadium. So you'll notice when I went around there, it only took me 4 times, 90 degrees each way. So those are some drills you can do. Again, we went through our stance, starts, redirects, okay? Good stance, good start, good redirect from the line of scrimmage, okay? Good explosion on our drills with the bag on the fence, working on explosion through our hips. Then we just did some pass rush moves, focusing on our hip movement as we come across the line of scrimmage, getting past the defender. So those are some drills you can do, simple drills to work on your defensive line play.
Also, we want to definitely make sure you keep the game safe. That's obviously important. So hopefully you had a real good idea of what this process was all about. Number 1, the fundamentals of the game. That's very, very important. Number 2, doing everything you can to keep the game safe, especially from a tackling possession. If you make sure you do all those things, everything will be fun for you. Because once you get those fundamentals down and understand the basics of the game, you will enjoy the game of football. To the parents out there, as a coaching association, we're going to do all we can to keep this thing going and keep the game safe. So obviously it's important to make sure you understand the importance of offense and defensive line play, but at the same time, all those skill position people should do some great things as well. For example, running backs, make sure you keep the ball high and tight. Wide receivers, make sure you're always getting off to a great start from the line of scrimmage, so the defender never know whether it's a run or a pass. Quarterbacks, be leaders. You must take charge, that's very important. And obviously defensive players continue to have a great mentality of understanding to make big plays. That's what we do here at Salisbury University. We enjoy our game, we enjoy our program. To the community, we're here for you. Anything that you need, feel free to touch base with us. So until next time, hopefully we'll see you soon at our football games and obviously next summer. Until then, go Gulls.